21 for only a day, yet another South African woman's life was taken far too soon. Taken from the access-controlled parking lot of a university. Taken in broad daylight. The question remains though, was justice served? Are their accomplices still walking free? This is Leigh Matthews' story.
And this is day 11 of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence.
Leigh Matthews was from a loving family and lived in Fourways, Johannesburg. She had an older sister and she was incredibly close to her mother. She was a good student in school and after graduating went on to attend university in Benmore Gardens. And on the 8th of July 2004, Leigh had turned 21. To celebrate, she had had dinner in Ceraldine with her family where she had excitedly discussed her Pirates of the Caribbean themed party that was happening that weekend. And the next day she went to university, like any other day, not knowing that her entire life was about to change. Because on the 9th of July 2004, Donovan Moodley put his plan into motion. Donovan Moodley was the son of a pastor from Alberton. He was dating the love of his life and he had worked several jobs, leaving his most recent one after being accused of fraud. He had then enrolled in university, but in the months prior to Leigh's kidnapping, he was handing in blank test and exam papers even though he was still attending lectures. It was almost as though there was another reason for him being there. Donovan knew Leigh, and he had planned, or so he believed, the kidnapping to a T. As she had walked to her car in the parking lot that morning, on the way to meet her mother, he took action. And that was the last time that Leigh would ever be seen. The minutes ticked by after their meeting time, and Leigh's mother repeatedly messaged and called her daughter, who was never late. And eventually, after another few attempts at phoning her, there was an answer. But it was not Leigh. It was a man. And he said, "I have taken Leigh. I have your daughter." Over the next few hours, pure chaos ensued. Leigh's mom had called her husband Rob, and he had managed to make contact with the man on the other end of the phone, who had attempted to conceal his accent and make his demands, for 300,000 rand to be precise. Rob had immediately rushed to 2 different banks, and he had managed to gain access to the funds. However, after consultation with a private investigator and team, he was advised to admit to only having access to 50,000 rand. The events that had transpired over the next few hours were tragic and traumatizing to say the least. After a late night drop of the ransom money in a location off the highway near the Grasmere Toll Plaza, the kidnapper went silent. And then the search for Leigh Matthews began. A 24-hour hotline was set up and her face was plastered across the media. On the 21st of July, 12 days after her abduction, the frantic search would come to an end, as her body was discovered. But with this discovery only came so many more questions. Later forensic reports would show that her remarkably preserved body had 4 gunshot wounds, as well as appeared to have freeze marks on her feet and hand. And there were so many things that didn't add up. The search for Leigh Matthews then turned into the search for her killer, and the infamous Piet Bielefeld was contacted as the case had gone cold after a month of no new leads. After some impressive detective work, a suspect was discovered and soon an arrest was made. Donovan Moodley's first words to Bielefeld made the headlines as he said, "What took you so long? I've been expecting you." And that was when the so-called truth of what had transpired would come to light.
He would later plead guilty and be sentenced to life imprisonment for murder, 15 years for kidnapping, and 10 years for extortion. In January of 2022, however, after serving 15 years of his sentence, he was eligible and applied for parole, much to the dismay of the Matthews family. His application was, however, denied. But he, however, is convinced that he should be released sooner rather than later. There is so much more to this case that I haven't mentioned, and I've covered it in great detail on my channel, Bella Monsoon. You can find it by clicking the link in the bio, or else you can search Bella Monsoon on YouTube.